Well, first victims of a mass shooting in Mitchell's Plain will be buried today. One of them is 13-year-old Tamir Mitchell. He was sadly shot last Thursday while on his way back from buying sweets at a local tuck shop. Our reporter Ronald Masinda is there for us this morning with the very latest. Good morning to you, Ronald. I cannot imagine the devastation and sadness the community is feeling this morning. Give us a sense of what's happening.
Yeah, really somber scenes here, Gareth, here in Mitchell's Plain. It's really tough for any parent to be burying one of their loved ones, especially their children. And as we can see in the background, many people have come here to pay their last respects to Tamir Mitchell. The 13-year-old was one of several victims who were shot and wounded during that incident that took place on the 25th of February on this road here in Beacon Valley. Many people have fond memories of this young man, and several others who were shot yesterday. An 18-year-old was also shot and killed, was buried yesterday, and many people here in Beacon Valley are here to pay their last respects to the 13-year-old Tamir Mitchell. As known by many people who live here, was a young aspiring dancer who went to Beacon Hill High School, was a grade 8 learner, and many people say that this youngster was robbed. The motive behind the shooting is still unclear, Gareth, but many people who say they saw a vehicle, a white vehicle, where occupants opened fire randomly, shooting several kids who live here. So police said that at the time that a 72-hour action plan will be in place to try and find the culprits, and we are yet to hear of any arrests, and the motive behind the shooting remains unclear.
Excuse me, Ronald, I was about to cough, forgive me. I would imagine, though, amongst the sadness of the community this morning, and I'm sure you'll be speaking to the family and friends, there's also this ongoing anger and frustration of the Mitchell Plain residents about the lack of enforcement in that area. This is not the first shooting that we've reported on over the years.
Yes, indeed, and certainly not the last by any means necessary, because people have been saying that many of these gangsters they cause these crimes and they get away with it with a lack of arrests being made. In Tafelsig, not too far from here, 4 people were also shot and killed during the same week when this incident happened here in Beacon Valley, and we are still yet to hear of any arrests made there. And one of the things that people are saying is that they don't know what the motive is, because the people who have been shot and killed in both areas in Mitchell's Plain were not part of gangs, and this has been something that Bheki Cele, the Minister of Police, also heard from very angry residents when he visited Mitchell's Plain earlier this week. He also visited Kraaifontein, where 2 police officers were gunned down, where one suspect, a 32-year-old, has since been arrested. Many people saying that Bheki Cele needs to have urgent interventions to try and curb crime, because gang violence is spiraling out of control. Now, we've also heard of other shootings in Khayelitsha, where 2 brothers were gunned down, and 2 other people also gunned down in Delft, and that was in the space of less than a week, Gareth, where all these incidents took place. And the police are saying that they are trying their utmost best. Bheki Cele is saying earlier this week, during that memorial service of the 2 police officers who were gunned down in Kraaifontein, that there may be consideration of bringing the army to be redeployed here in some of the crime hotspot areas. Now, we know that with the army, when it was deployed here to fight gangsterism in many hotspot areas, there was information from the police that crime and murder rate had decreased quite drastically. So these are the conversations that Bheki Cele will be having with the Minister of Defence in order to try and increase police visibility, and also to try and find out what seems to be the issues. And one of the issues on the ground, when we heard from Mitchell's Plain residents, when we heard news of these victims who were gunned down, was that there seems to be so many guns here on these streets, and many of them are, of course, illegal guns, and one wonders where these guns come from, because it seems like it's been just one mode where people have been shot and killed, and no one knows where these thugs come from. And only yesterday, Gareth, we also had just down the road, not too far from Westridge, another gang member was shot and killed killed near his house, and it seems like every day we are hearing the same stories, but we are yet to see much in terms of arrests being made and holding people accountable.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to be speaking to authorities about what is actually happening in the area and why the crime rates continue to spike in Mitchell's Plain and, of course, the other areas, Ronald. Let's just turn our attention back to young Tamir Mitchell for a moment. I can see, I'm going to just guesstimate, hundreds of people behind you, all wanting to have their say, and I'm sure want to have their final goodbyes as well for young Tamir. But COVID-19 not going to allow that. What is the plan for today, according to your understanding?
Well, to our understanding at the moment, they are at the family house, but the service will be moved to the Baptist Church, where many other people who are expected here will be there. But Gareth, for more, I just want to bring in one of the community leaders and someone who's well known in terms of activism, particularly here in Mitchell's Plain. Thank you so much indeed for your time. First of all, devastating to see that. You know, such a young life that was robbed. Just your thoughts.
It is heart-wrenching. You know, we're used to funerals, but this one is particularly brutal. This 13-year-old young boy was shot close to the eye. His lips are bruised from the way he fell. It breaks you. Sad thing is that there'll probably be another one like him later today. That's just how we live.
And it's really heartbreaking. And when we were here earlier in the week, when people were engaging with the police minister, they said they are tired of empty promises. Is that the narrative across the Cape Flats?
In 1998, Jackie Selebe came to Mitchell's Plain and he promised to sort out the gang problem within 24 hours. 22 years, we're still at it. There's no will to fix this, none. We know who they are, we know who the dealers are. We can tell the police, but we'll end up dead. That's just the reality. That's how we live. That's how we're expected to live.
But why aren't police making these arrests? Are they also in cahoots with these criminals?
Sir, I'm not going to make any allegations, but the fact of the matter is that the gang and the drug trade is too important to the state. On a Monday morning at the Mitchell's Plain Court, hundreds of our young men are paying bails for drug-related offences, for shootings. It generates too much money, it employs too many people, therefore there's no will to attack it. You know, when drug dealers are having meetings with mayors and presidents, it tells you where we're going. It tells you where our society's at.
Albert Fritz was also here, Community Safety MEC, and he also paid a visit to some of the families. The Western Cape government, or they also, you know, should they also be held accountable, given that they also have a responsibility to enforce law?
Well, one of the election promises was 500 law enforcement officers. We never arrived. They never arrived. The votes were given. We never got our return on our investment. They are as culpable as national government. Sadly, I do believe that MEC Fritz, I do thank him for coming here, but I do believe that he needs to step it up and do a little bit more, that the resources that are parked on Camps Bay this morning belong here on the Cape Flats where our children are being killed, that the policemen guarding statues out in Cape Town, they need to be here. We need everybody here today, but yesterday law enforcement was evicting people in Hout Bay, evicting people for putting up shacks. We needed them here to stop the shooting. It is just total madness. It is one-sidedness. It is blindness. It could be called rank stupidity, and it would be justifiable.
Fadil, before I let you go, in terms of this narrative that this couldn't have been gang-related, I mean, this youngster was known, many people saying he was an aspiring dancer. You know, a lot of the youngsters that we heard from that were shot, they were soccer players, and we spoke to their coach as well, who was also devastated by the loss of one of them, the 18-year-old. In terms of what you know, can you tell us more? What could have been the motive?
Oh, look, I've lived this life, so I know exactly what happens here. I'll tell you what happens here. Is if you live in a certain area, you're automatically gang affiliated, whether you know it, whether you don't. I do believe that it's gang related. It's just the fact that they shot the wrong people. You know, when a 13-year-old can look like a gangster to someone that doesn't know him, tells you exactly where my society's at.
Now that you bring that important point, should we not see more people who've been reformed, who've stepped out of the gang life, speak to such gangs in order to end this bloodshed?
There are many people that have been reformed that are doing it, many, but we'll never have enough. What we need is more parks, more recreational activity. These kids wouldn't be playing on street corners if the parks were clean, if the sports fields were operational. They wouldn't be there. It's just that simple. These poor kids, you know, the odds are stacked against them. Take a walk down the street, you could get killed. Mommy sends you to the spaza shop, you could get killed. It's how we live.
All right. Thank you, Fadil, for your time. That was Fadil Adams. He's an activist here in Mitchell's Plain, saying, Gareth, that, you know, this could be gang-related. He knows this type of behavior. And we've also heard, Gareth, of stories of gangs using this as an initiation ritual, just killing people so that they can be part of the gang, which is really sad.
Sad, I think, is perhaps just one way to put it. Devastating would be another. Ronald Masinda, thank you very much. You're going to be out there today with that community in mourning in Mitchell's Plain, as they say, a final farewell to 13-year-old Tamir Mitchell. Back to Ronald Masinda as that funeral and the remembrance of this 13-year-old gets underway later this morning.